Hello everybody, Maven here. Happy late New Year's, and I really had wished I made this video at the beginning of last week because that's when the reprised Uzume RR4 Adept was available to us in Grandmaster Nightfalls, and now we have to wait weeks for it to return. But let me tell you, when it comes back, this is a weapon you're going to want to grind for. We all thought the Supremacy was as nuts as it can get for a legendary sniper rifle, but we were wrong. Bungie proved us wrong, and they made the Uzume even deadlier. They gave it the role of 4th times a charm and Deconstruct, and if you don't know how crazy that is, I did a video the other day on the primary weapon role of rewind rounds in Deconstruct. I'll link that video in the card up above and in the description down below, and I encourage you to check it out. That role allows you to fire off hundreds of bullets in one magazine. It's insane. And so now that we got a similar role on a sniper rifle, it's time to put it to the test and see how it compares against things like the Cloudstrike and the Supremacy. So let's get to it, and remember, if you enjoy the video, hitting the like button goes a long way and helps out a ton. Okay, let's break it down. So Deconstruct boosts our damage against absolutely pointless junk, but what we do care about on this perk is that sustained fire on a target reloads ammo back into the magazine, and in this case it's on a special weapon, so I should note that this ammo comes from thin air, not from your reserves, so it's already incredible. Now let me show you an example against Carl. On the 5th shot, the bullet gets refunded to us, and unlike things like triple tap and 4th times a charm, we don't even need to hit crits for this perk, so it's very forgiving. But regardless, you pair that perk along with 4 times a charm and it gets a little out of control. So let's do a test here against Kali, and before you say anything, yes, I know Div reduces damage against Kali, but we're using it just so I can hit crits and make it easier for the test for the sake of the comparison we're about to do. So you can see here that 4th times a charm and Deconstruct are rocking like crazy, granting us insane amounts of free ammo, and ultimately we're able to fire off 18 shots in just one 7-round magazine. So we got 11 shots for free, meaning we technically have 54 reserves in total if we hit all of our crits. So looking at our total damage here, we do 189,900 damage for one magazine. We have a total of 21 base reserves, so in 3 whole mags, we get 569,700 damage for our whole base reserves. Now let's move on to the Supremacy here. We're using rewind rounds in 4th times a charm. Why? Because here's a screenshot from As the Cross's sniper DPS testing video, and this turned out to be the best DPS role for the Supremacy, so that's what we're using. And I'll link As the Cross's video in the description, and you should definitely go and check it out. And as you can see, we are able to dump our entire reserves without having to reload a single time. Now we would get more total damage output if we use kinetic tremors, but that would be a heck of a lot slower. If you're going to use a Supremacy strictly for DPS, you would use this role, so that's what we're sticking with for the sake of realism here. So we end up with a total of 455,584 for the entire reserves, and remember, the Uzume could do 569,700 in its entire reserves. And another thing you got to keep in mind here are reserve mods. If you use kinetic reserves, sure, you could get off a few more shots with your Supremacy, but remember what we learned about the 4th times Deconstruct Uzume. A single 7-round magazine allows you to fire off 18 rounds because of this perk combo, so in theory, a couple reserve mods giving us an entire extra magazine is actually enormous and far exceeds the Supremacy's wildest dreams in terms of total damage output. Same concept goes for finders and scavengers as well. The Uzume is just insanely ammo efficient. But what about DPS though? And that brings us to our artifact mods that we still have 5 more months with. Flint Striker allows you to become radiant by landing solar precision shots, and then when you're radiant, Kindling Trigger allows you to apply Scorch with a solar weapon, and this combo further adds to the DPS of the Uzume, at least for 5 more months. So we already know the Supremacy did 455k and 1 Kali final stand, so let's skip to the Uzume and pay close attention to the Flint Striker in action. Just a couple shots makes us radiant, and it constantly refreshes itself. Now you can't quite see the Scorch damage numbers because they're off screen, but trust me, they're there. At least you can see Kali on fire. So these artifact mods are basically just free added perks of the Uzume, making it even more insane. So we end up with 447,000, which means it did less DPS than the Supremacy in a slower amount of time because the Supremacy dumped all of its reserves early. But you gotta keep in mind that we still had a ton of reserves left with the Uzume as the phase ended. So while it lacks just a little bit in DPS, it makes up by far in miles in total damage output. But what about the Cloudstrike? I did say in the intro we're going to try it, and so I did. But I ran into a little bit of a dilemma, and maybe someone in the comments who is very knowledgeable about the intricacies of Destiny 2 can enlighten me here. So this was fair game for testing the sniper itself. We all know Div reduces crit damage against Callie because she's coded as a witch, and witches have a bigger crit modifier to their actual head. But we were just using Div for the testing to make it easier to hit the crit, and it was fair playing field for the damage comparison across the board. However, I think the lightning strikes from the Cloudstrike's exotic perk didn't have that same damage nerf modifier that our sniper damage did because it's an entirely different entity. So as you can see here, the Cloudstrike appears to have won our DPS test. However, and as the Cross's Templar damage testing, the Cloudstrike came nowhere near the Supremacy. That's why I felt a little iffy about this whole Callie Div situation with the crit. And unlike As the Cross, I can't magically summon friends to help me get to Templar, and you know, Vault of Glass LFG is pretty dead, so it's a lot less convenient and tough for me to get to Templar for a video. So instead, I decided to do a triple side-by-side comparison against good old Charles with all three of our snipers for today. Now, yes, I know I missed a ton of crits with each one of these takes, but it was a realistic scenario, a realistic hectic situation. You're not always going to hit every crit. You're not going to have the perfect angle all the time. You're going to get flinched. So I felt this is a very viable comparison with these three snipers. Now, I got a note here that the Supremacy wasn't able to kill Charles in its entire reserves, so I had to cut that clip early. Looking back at it though, it definitely does the most burst DPS. And another thing to note here is that I did not use the artifact mods, Flint Striker and Kindling Trigger on the Uzume here because I wanted a completely fair comparison with all three of these. Although if I did have it, it'd probably be a little more in line with the DPS of the Cloudstrike. Now, the Cloudstrike did have enough reserves to kill Charles, but just barely. Now, I know the ammo is cut off here because I really had to crop these clips a lot to fit them on screen, but you have my word that the Uzume by far had the most ammo left over when Charles was dead. And remember, that's without Flint Striker and Kindling Trigger, so no Radiant, and the Uzume is above and beyond light years ahead of every special sniper option in the game for total damage output and ammo efficiency without taking up an exotic slot like the Cloudstrike does. And icing on the cake, but with triple reserve mods, the Uzume can hold 28 ammo. That's an extra mag, that's 4 mags, meaning you can get off 72 shots in total as long as you hit all crits. That's a lot of damage. ELDR, Uzume is the best sustained DPS sniper in the game, but Supremacy is the best burst damage sniper, and I would say Supremacy wins in the utility department as well because of its other perk roles such as Lead from Gold with Kinetic Tremors for general play. But it's definitely one of the best snipers and worth your time to grind for if you consider yourself a hardcore Destiny player. So with that being said, good luck with the grind next time it comes back to the weekly rotation. And this next little tidbit of information I left down in the comments for those who don't really watch entire videos, but you don't need an Adept Uzume to have, you know, this perfect roll optimally. You need to get to 7 in the mag. I'm using an Adept backup mag, but you can make it happen with a normal backup mag on a non-Adept roll if you have extended mag, and it might even work with dependent mag, I'm not sure. So just go focus some of these at Zavala. Doesn't need to be Adept, don't worry. So that's gonna do it for this one. Thank you so much for watching the video. I hope you enjoyed it and I hope it helped. If it did, be sure to hit the like button and drop a comment because interacting with the video really helps out the algorithms. I'd greatly appreciate it. And if you are new here, please consider subscribing. Would love to have you here. Happy New Year's again. And with that, I'll catch you in the next video. See you later.